Hi, and welcome everyone to our 77th episode of The Little Inside. As you might have already guessed, my name is still Tobi, after all these weeks. And this week I'm going to discuss a little bit 4 qualities of the so-called 4 Divine Abidings, which is kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So let's get started right after the intro. There are 4 powerful qualities that will actually really boost your practice, that will really help you on this path. These 4 qualities are also the so-called 4 Divine Abidings, or in their original term, they're called the Brahmavihara, which means something like the abode of Brahma, which is a very high divinity. So it's a very powerful 4 states. They're powerful in ways that influence our thoughts, our mind, our feeling state, and influence our actions for the benefit and the well-being of ourselves and all others around us. So these 4 states are kindness, or in other words, metta. The second state is compassion, or karuna. The third state is sympathetic joy, which is called mudita also. And then we have the fourth, which is equanimity, or upekkha. So we have these 4 states. And these 4 divine abidings, or these 4 states, are something that can be practiced, that can be brought even to perfection. And if we want to cultivate them and set out on the path, then it's really, really important to understand, first of all, what they are. And then we can set out on the path to actually practice them, and gradually over time, with more and more experience, access deeper levels of each of these states. So let's start with metta, the first one, kindness, also very often translated as loving kindness, or warmth, or friendliness. So we have these, or goodwill, sometimes very often also translated as goodwill. So these kindness really is based on acceptance. It's just based on the quality of accepting something. You can either accept yourself or aspects of yourself, such as feelings, thoughts, emotions, or perceptions, physical states, such as illness or good health. You can learn to accept these states within yourself. And then from there, from that point, from accepting attributes of yourself, you can then also spread out the kindness. You can learn to actually accept other people. You can learn to accept the various qualities of your friends. You can learn to accept the various qualities of people you don't know, you have nothing to do with. And then also you can learn to accept also the various qualities of your enemies even. Like people who are very distant from you, people that you actually would try to avoid, really. So we have these 3 types of persons that we can develop it toward. Like, for example, your friends, your the people that you don't know, and your enemies. But in reality it's 4, so you have also yourself. And like with everything, you want to always develop the quality first towards yourself. So how do you develop kindness towards yourself? Well, kindness is sometimes defined as a wish for someone to be happy and well. So for example, you can sit down, quieten your mind a little bit, and then just explore this wish for yourself. May I be happy, may I be well, may I be at ease. What really works for me here is the phrasing of, may I let myself be as I am, or may I accept myself the way I am. May I accept this feeling just the way it is. May I accept this thought just the way it is. Because all too often we're actually at war with ourselves. We try to get rid of thoughts, we try to get rid of feelings, and it can go into very subtle levels. Many people, they practice meditation in order to get rid of certain qualities that they deem improper or not good, which is not entirely wrong. But here the point of kindness is to learn to actually accept those qualities, and through that there is a sort of transformation happening. When you, for example, when anger arises in your being and you have the quality of kindness, then you can give space to that anger. You don't have to express it, and you don't have to suppress it. Right? You could either express a negative emotion so it spreads. It's like a fire. When it burns in one house, it can spread to the next house and the next house. So it is wise to kind of extinguish the fire as soon as possible before it spreads. And the best way to extinguish it, here, our negative emotions, is by giving it space, by not following it, by learning to let it be, because that's something very natural. We all experience emotions such as anger, fear, sadness, anxiety, worry. So there is really no need to fight these emotions. The more you fight them, the louder they become often. And also, then very often if you keep suppressing them, for some people they will build this huge energy of negativity within themselves. They're kind of poisoning themselves. They're holding all these negative qualities within themselves. Then some people say, well, then you need to express them. You need to let those qualities out. I would disagree with that. I don't think we need to let these qualities out. But you can allow these qualities to dissolve, and that requires a state of mind which does not seek out distraction. And here is where kindness comes in. You learn to accept, to be kind to your anger. This is a possibility that we all have. We learn to be kind to our anger. We can treat our anger with friendliness. And what happens when you do that is the anger cannot sustain itself. It dissolves. It follows its nature. If you are not fighting with anger or if you're following anger, then if you're just simply giving it space, then it does what any mental state does. It simply dissolves. So kindness has that quality. It wishes for yourself to be well. And what's the cause of being well within ourselves? Well, the cause of being well with ourselves is stopping to be at war with ourselves, stopping to resist ourselves, to judge ourselves, to constantly doctor around on ourselves, or trying to cut this bad quality away and add more positive qualities, and constantly basically coming from this unsatisfied state of, I am not enough the way I am. What I feel is not good enough. It must be better. I must feel better feelings. I must always be happy. There's no room for unhappiness. There's no room for illness. And even though these things do exist, undeniably, we're very often completely at war with our shadow, with our dark side, if you will. So within ourselves, there also exist friends, you can say. There exist enemies, and there exist states that we don't know. So we start with ourselves. We develop kindness towards those states that we like within ourselves. For example, when you're happy, can you accept your happiness? Probably going to be really, really easy, just allowing it to be there. In fact, not messing around with it, not trying to add more onto it, or take something away from it, or optimize it in some way, but just allowing it to be there, accepting it within a friendly, loving, warm space. That's the first step, learning to do that. Second step would be then to deal with things that are kind of a little bit hazy. You don't really clearly able to define them. What kind of feeling is that? What kind of thought is that? It's weird. I'm not really able to categorize it or something like that. Then you deal with these kind of states, these neutral states, but you don't really know what it is. So then these states, you accept them. You just allow them to be the way they are. You accept them in an open, seeing, knowing, clear space. And finally, last but not least, you learn to accept your own enemies. That means states within yourself that you usually try to distract yourself away from. Things that you don't like about yourself. Thoughts, feelings, emotions that you try to avoid at all costs. When your kindness becomes very strong, you're even able to accept those states, but that requires practice. You can't just jump into that and accept your anger with kindness on the first session. It doesn't really work. You have to get better at this. You have to train the ability to provide space to yourself. And we do that step by step, and we start with simple states that are easy to release, that are easy to accept. From that state on, when you're really good at developing this kindness towards yourself in all your various states, Then you can slowly branch out from there. You can accept your friends, you can accept your enemies, you can accept people that you don't know, and you can wish them well. You can give them space to live, to breathe, to be, to mess up, to make mistakes, because it's a very human thing. Very often we look at another person and we just kind of internally don't allow them to be the way they are, or don't allow them to make mistakes. But we all do. We continuously make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. It's called learning, isn't it? So it's really, really important to integrate that into our life, not to shut that out. I shouldn't make mistakes. Everything should always be perfect. Everything should always work out the way I need it to work out. That's very harsh. My girlfriend, my wife, should be exactly the way she should be. If she's not that way, I don't give her my love. I don't give her my affection. I look down upon her or something like that. That's wrong. This is very selective. So you want to learn to allow people to be themselves, to make their own mistakes, to be messy, to be human beings. But we cannot do that if we haven't practiced that with ourselves. So basically you can say people who are very violent towards themselves in thought, speech, and action, they tend to be very violent towards other people in thought, speech, and actions. And violence already starts with degrading another person mentally, like really looking down upon them, feeling that you're much better than them and stuff like this. This is already a sign that we are not really at peace with ourselves. The second quality follows the same kind of system. We develop it first towards ourselves, then towards others, is compassion. Compassion is, you can say, what kindness does or feels when it encounters suffering. So when you see that you are suffering, then you cultivate the wish, may I be free from suffering. That is already compassion. It is not perfect compassion. It's not compassion on the highest level, but it is something to cultivate. It's a very worthwhile state to cultivate. So each time when you find yourself suffering, then kindness turns into compassion. It sees that suffering and it says, well, may I be free from that suffering. Maybe even a bit of a better way to phrase it would be, may I free this suffering. May I liberate this suffering. May I let it be. May I stop messing around with it, adding more suffering on top of it. So you learn to let things be. This is not passivity. I'm not encouraging you to become very passive about things. I'm encouraging you to actively recognize yourself, to see what's going on within yourself. It's a very active process of bringing light into the areas that need it. So you bring that luminosity of awareness and acceptance and kindness and warmth into these cold, shadowy, dark areas of yourself that are usually that you push aside, that you want to avoid, that you want to kind of just fix away, get rid of. You bring the light right there. This is a form of courage. It's a form of accepting yourself very fully. And it is deeply, deeply transformative and healing. Compassion can be defined as the wish for someone to be free from suffering. Again, we apply that to ourselves and then slowly towards others as well. Naturally, quite naturally. If you're very compassionate with yourself, naturally you start to become more compassionate with other people as well. The third state is sympathetic joy, or mudita, which means that it's kind of like what kindness does when it encounters happiness, when it sees someone being happy, someone having success. It's a direct antidote to jealousy, actually. So we are cultivating joy when other people are joyful, successful, happy, well, healthy. Look at it. Celebrate it in your own mind. Feel happy about it. Learn to feel happy about other people's progress on the path, about other people's devotion to truth, about other people's generosity. When you see someone being generous, train yourself to feel joyful about it. Contemplate how nice that is. This is what makes the world a better place, really. If you see someone doing good, celebrate it in your mind. that also directly counteracts this very nasty attitude of constantly looking for faults. Here, this is wrong with that person, that's wrong with this person, and that person, why is he like that? Why is she like this? She shouldn't be like that. So that counteracts this kind of negativity that we often cultivate within ourselves, seeing other people in very negative light. And last but not least is upekkha. Upekkha is that state which is equanimity, meaning here you are able to be aloof above suffering, above pleasures, above the duality of life. You can find a very solid, calm centeredness and balance within yourself that allows you to engage life in a very calm, tranquil, composed, and wise manner. This is really important. Upekkha is a state that you develop deeply in meditation practice, but you can already practice it by learning not to get caught up in either pain or pleasure. You are simply allowing these states. So in a way we can say upekkha is a very ultimate manifestation of kindness. This is this complete acceptance of the transitoriness of all the emotions that we feel, of all the thoughts that there are, of all the qualities that arise and pass. You're not arising and passing with them. This allows you to have equanimity. So these are the four states: kindness, compassion, sympathetic, joy, and equanimity. So these are the four states. I have only really briefly kind of looked into them as these little insights are called little insights. I'm not going into very extensive teachings here on either one of those states. I also doubt that I'm able to go pretty deep into those states, but we can actually just scratch the surface a little bit and see the benefit already of those states together. See that it's a very worthwhile thing to cultivate, the ability of acceptance or forgiveness, and to be kind towards ourselves, to be kind towards those we are dealing with, towards that person who is right in front of us in that moment. We can all understand and see very clearly that these states are beneficial and definitely make our life happier and better. So this is all that comes to mind for this week, all about the 4 Divine Abidings. I hope it was helpful and useful for you guys. As always, if you do have any questions or want to write a comment down in the comment section below, just don't hesitate. I'm trying to answer those comments of yours as fast as I can, and I'm always happy to read what interests you, what moves you on the path. And well, I wish all of you a wonderful next week and look forward to see you again next Wednesday. Bye-bye.